Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host, coming to you from Morgantown, Pennsylvania. Getting loaded here. Dropped a load this morning, Sealands Grove. Getting loaded up, and we're heading straight back to Kansas with this load, and then we'll see what's going on. I will tell you that so I'm starting a little contest right now. So I got a call today, not supposedly, I'm sure it's true. My new truck is at the terminal in Springfield. It's already been to stripes and stuff. So I'm gonna put my email address in the description. Whoever is the first person to send me a picture of my truck, I'll get you a free t-shirt. I'm going to be in Springfield next week, Tuesday, Wednesday at least, picking up the new truck, transferring all my stuff over from the current truck. Now, I will have to get stripes and stuff to put another dead deer on the side. Like I'm almost a deer ace, because I hit another deer yesterday morning in Ohio, and it didn't do a lot of damage, but it did knock out my left fog light. I guess the deer's head, I'm pretty sure it was the deer's head, went in that hole in the deer guard. Because there was like deer snot on the bar there, and some deer fur in the edges where my hut sticker, my little metal piece that has my hut sticker on it. It happened. I mean, it was crazy because I was on I-71 and headed north in Ohio, and kind of getting towards the end of my shift, and for whatever reason, I was in the right lane of 3, and for whatever reason though, I was like, oh, let me look in my right side mirror. So I turned my head and glanced over there. As soon as I turned my head back, I don't even see the deer's head, I just see like some brown, like right in front of the hood of the truck. And then, instantaneously I hear a bang. And fortunately, not for the deer, but it was, by the time I heard the bang, it was probably already dead. But fortunately for everybody else on the road, there wasn't a ton of traffic. And so when I looked in my left side mirror, the deer was just kind of like flat spinning straight across all 3 lanes, and actually ended up on the left shoulder. So nobody else hit it. It wasn't, I didn't grind it up like you see sometimes. It just like whacked it, flung it out of the way. Very efficient. So anyway, I got to turn the truck in. And get all my stuff transferred over, and we'll just go from there. So I wanted to comment on I was going to comment on this anyway, but then Lyle beat me to the punch, and he sent out a video, or he did a video about service failure. And full disclosure, Lyle and I have the same fleet manager. So, hold on a second. So, I like Lyle's take on this pretty much. But let me say this too. Lyle said, if people are service failing, they should be fired. And I think that's probably the right answer, unless there's some extenuating circumstance. But if there is some extenuating circumstance, I mean, both Prime and the customer should know about it beforehand, right? Like if you're like, oh, you know, like you can't just show up an hour late and not have called anybody or whatever. And, you know, the thing is, right, and I know it's how, you know, normally I'm not the guy that's like, oh, fire that person or fire this person. Sometimes I am, but you know, I'm kind of like, hey, that's not my business, you know, like they got a fleet manager. But here's my issue, and I take this pretty seriously. You know, there's a saying that the French Foreign Legion is only as good as its worst German mercenary. And I've said in the past that a trucking company is only as good as its worst driver manager or worst fleet manager. But in some cases, you know, maybe it's only as good as its worst driver. I mean, because we've seen, you know, how one driver can like wreck a whole company. Like one driver put Marvin Keller Trucking into bankruptcy because he screwed up, and then Marvin Keller lost in an enormous lawsuit. You know, so one truck driver does make a difference. And here's the thing, and Lyle didn't really hit on this, but you know, there's the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? Like a company as big as Prime doesn't lose a contract as big as Tyson because one driver screws up, right? They lose it because one driver screws up, you know, 400 times in 1 year, right? That's how a contract is lost. You know, you take a company like Tyson, where we probably move, I would guess, you know, 200, 300 loads a week. Maybe it's a lot more, I don't know. But let's just say it's 200 loads a week, right? So there's 52 weeks in a year. So that means we're moving over 10,000 loads a year for them. And I'm pretty confident that that's a legit number. But let's say it's, you know, let's just round off, say it's 10 grand. 10,000 loads a year. First of all, that's a shit ton of revenue. But second of all, both for the company, but also for individual drivers, right? If you know, look at all the Tyson loads you run in a year and see, you know, what it adds up to. But here's the thing, right? Like, so 10,000 loads, you know, you're like, well, you know, what if 1% of them, right? What if 100 of them are jacked up and it's our fault? You know, would Tyson cancel the contract? You know, probably not. I don't know. Maybe Robert Lowe plays golf with people named Tyson when he goes down to Arkansas and plays golf with them. I don't know. You know, maybe that's all it takes to let 100 bad trips slide out of 10,000. But at some point, right, and I don't know what that number is, and that's the most important thing, right? You don't know what that number is. You never know when you've done the last thing that's going to get you fired by a client or a customer, right? And so, you know, let's say that somebody does service fail. In this environment, that's really, really bad. And by the way, if you think there aren't repercussions for service failure other than missing out on a ball cap and a polo shirt, I think you're misguided. You show me somebody who's service failed on an OTIF load, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to see somebody that doesn't get OTIF loads anymore, right? And you know, same thing with you know, Tyson, right? Like, you show me somebody that's service failed on one of their loads, they might not get Tyson loads anymore. And so that means you got to take the scraps. You got to take crap that nobody else wants. So that's a compelling reason for the individual driver to make sure they don't service fail. But, you know, but the other point is, you never know when somebody's finally going to pull the plug. You don't know what is going to happen that's going to make somebody finally say, you know what, Prime, we're out. You know, Hirschbach bought 300 new trucks. You know, KLLM bought 300 new trucks, whatever, right? Whoever our competition is, you know. Swift and Knight Refrigerated bought 300 new trucks. They're going to dedicate them to our accounts. You never know, right? Trucking is a cutthroat business, and I guess what I'm saying is that just these loads are not too hard to get delivered and picked up on time. If it's because you can't drag your ass out of bed in the morning and you're jeopardizing everybody's livelihood, just go somewhere else. And maybe not to a competitor, just go, I don't know, go work at a job where being on time for stuff doesn't matter. I'm not sure what job that is, but maybe it's a home-based business where you don't have to open if you don't want to. I've seen little stores like that in some towns where they're just like, we're not open today. Even though their hours are like posted, they're like, yeah, whatever, we're not coming in because we don't have to. If you can get a gig like that, go for it. But let me just say, Lyle's more tuned into social media than I am, and for him to say, that people are complaining about driving at night or complaining about the reefer being on, I'm just like, I don't even get it, right? I mean, go apply at Snowflake Trucking Company, because this, like I used to say to guys in the military, if this was easy, everybody'd be doing it, right? Because you think about it, this is a pretty lucrative gig considering the qualifications, right? I mean, there are some people out here that are doing pretty well, but you got to work at it. I mean, Lyle, I think Lyle told me he made like $600,000-700,000 last year, but the guy works his ass off. He should be making that kind of money. I didn't make that kind of money, but you don't see me out here with a huge fro. Well, the reason you don't see me with a huge fro is because I don't stay out as long as he does. But he's the hardest working man at Prime, I think. He's got, he's a fleet admiral, and he's just rocking. But the secret to his success is that he, shows up on time and does his job. And, that's about all it takes sometimes to be successful. Show up on time, do your job. So if you're one of those people that thinks it's, I mean, maybe nobody thinks it's acceptable to service fail, but maybe some people don't hate failure enough to do something about it. I just don't like being told I'm late. I showed up for a pickup one time. I got there within minutes of being dispatched on it, right? Like I went, I got the dispatch and I was there like 45 minutes later. And I guess somebody else didn't get the load picked up, or there were no trucks in the area. And the guy said, "You're late." And I was still angry about it. I knew I wasn't late. I knew this was when I was at night. And he was like, "You're late. You're supposed," and the thing is, right, like, I don't like it when somebody takes out something on me that's the fault of another driver at my company, right? That's why I want to work at a place that has a good reputation. And when he said I was late, I was like, well, hey, if you want me to leave, I'll leave. And he's like, oh, no, I'll load the truck, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing, right? Prime has enjoyed a pretty good reputation. And like my fleet manager has said often, that's part of the success of the company is the service portion. One of the very first loads I ever hauled at Prime, I picked up bulk yams or bulk sweet potatoes, whatever you want to call them, in Atwater, California. Took them up to Idaho. And there was a bunch of Prime drivers there. And you know what the guy said to me when I checked in? He said, man, I like you Prime guys. Everybody shows up on time. These other companies, they just get here when they get here, but you guys show up on time, and I like that. And this is an older guy. He'd been running that business for a long time. He appreciated the fact that when when Prime said a truck will be there, a truck was there when they said. And you know, that's that's the important thing about, you know, about having, you know, you have a good reputation, but you got to maintain your reputation for being a good company on a daily basis. You know, it's something you got to work at every day. So if, you know, if that's something that's you know, you don't want to do, then, you know, like I said, do some other gig, because you're going to end up unhappy anyway, right? And you know, it's just, and you know, you're just making it hard for everybody else, you know. So I still feel like I'm doing okay. You know, I think this week will be pretty good. You know, the loads still aren't paying what I would like, but maybe that was always true. But if you're on a load and you're like, hey, this load doesn't pay that much, so I'm not going to care that much, then just be honest with everybody and just say, hey, I'm not going to take this load. So anyway, that's about it. Appreciate all the people that subscribe to the channel. Appreciate all the views. Yeah, so that, you know, that's about all I got today. I take that back. I got one other thing, and I forgot to mention it earlier. And it's this idea, and I was going to talk about, you know, this, since we're talking about service failure. You know, if you're a truck driver, you're like many, many Americans. You have a lot in common with people that work at McDonald's. You have a lot in common with lawyers, with doctors, with accountants, right? You have a lot in common with school bus drivers, teachers. And what is that? The answer is that what you do is you do stuff for people. In other words, we don't make anything, right? We just help somebody give that whatever was made by somebody to another person. That's all we do, right? And that's service. So anyway, you know, we're in the service business, and we have to serve our customers. And if we're not serving their needs, if we're not meeting their needs, then, you know, we're not going to stay in business. You know, we don't make anything. So we can't, the only way to improve our product is to really be just as good as we can be every single time. We don't, and maybe that's the answer. We don't have to improve the product. We just have to deliver what we've always delivered. You know, we don't have to make, you know, Prime Ink 12.0 because the last version of Prime Ink was 11.5. We don't have to do that. We just have to do Prime 1.0 or 1.5 every time, right? That's what keeps, you know, Prime, a company, around for 50 plus years. So anyway, thanks for listening to my mini rant here. And, you know, go team, right? Like, we just got to get, you know, we got to get the ball across the across the goal line every single time. We have to score on every single drive. Maybe that's it. Every game is a must-win game. How's that sound? All right, talk to you later. Bye.